So you may notice that some children or young people that you support have difficulties doing up buttons or zips, and maybe it's about the motor skills and the fine motor development that we need to be able to do those activities. But for some people with sensory processing difficulties, it might be due to their sensory processing. So for people who are hyposensitive to visual information, so they're not processing enough of the visual sensations to be meaningful, they might find it difficult to actually put the two pieces together to do up a zip. So they'll need support being able to focus on the zip to be able to meet it together and then to be able to pull it up. But also because they're known as seeking out sensations, if someone's hyposensitive, means they have a high threshold, so they need a lot of information to be able to recognise that input. So if someone's hypo visually, they'll need lots of visual input, so it might mean that actually they become distracted with things in their environment a lot easier than the activity of them doing up the zip themselves. Exactly the same with buttons. Being able to identify, locate those two different objects and being able to piece them together. So for some people, they might be seeking out more visual information through other ways and find it difficult to focus all of their concentration just on that one visual activity. Otherwise, it might be relating to someone's proprioceptive sense. So that's our sense of body awareness, so where our body is in space, and it's the feedback we get from our joints and our muscles. So being able to do up a zip, we need to be really aware of our fingers and our hands. So for some people, might need to do some exercises before we do activities like doing up zips and doing up buttons. Otherwise, if you imagine that your fingers have got pins and needles, so imagine that you're really aware of where your fingers are, you then might find it difficult to do up a zip or to do up a button because you're really aware of where your fingers are. So for some people who are processing too many sensations from their proprioceptive sense, they might find it difficult to do up a button or to do up a zip purely because of the information they're already receiving too much from their hands. Some people who are hypersensitive to vestibular input, so say if someone's hypersensitive, it means they have a really low threshold. So a threshold is the amount of information that we need. So if someone has a really low threshold, they only need a tiny amount of movement, if we're talking about sensation, for them to then be able to recognise that. So if someone's hypersensitive to vestibular input, it might be the fact that while they're standing to do up their zip or to do up a button, they might find that difficult because they're already receiving too much movement sensations because they're trying to focus on balancing and standing up straight. So maybe if they lean against something or if they're sitting down, they might find it easier. Also, if you're receiving lots and lots of movement sensations, imagine if you're feeling that dizzy feeling, so you've spun around in loads and loads of circles, you would then find it difficult not just to balance yourself, but to be able to piece the two bits of information together. So to be able to do up a zip or to be able to do up a button. We rely on our visual information when we're processing our vestibular information as well, so the two work really closely together. So when you're feeling really dizzy, it might be that you try and reduce the things that you're seeing around you to try and help to make yourself feel less dizzy. It's exactly the same when we're supporting sensory needs with our development as well. Someone's going to find it difficult to focus on an object if they're processing too much movement vestibular sensations. However, for other people, children and adults, don't forget, it might be relating to touch, so it might be related to the actual feeling of the zip or the button itself. It might be that someone's hypersensitive, so they find it really difficult to feel or to touch or to be close to certain kinds of textures. So again, to be able to hold something in their hands, on their skin, and do up the zip or to do up the button can be really difficult. Don't forget, with zips and buttons you've got the other fabric as well, so whether it's cotton, whether it's lycra, whatever kind of fabric it is, that might be the difficulty as well. So some people might find it okay to do up a zip on a jacket like this, or on a hoodie, on something that's cotton, but for something that's polyester or something that slips and slides a bit easier, they might find it harder to do up that zip or to do up the button.